we have a committee, and everything's on the table right now because the committee, Pelcha-Rousseau, is looking everywhere. How can we reinforce laïcité, respecting our law, and move forward if we have to? It's not more far we go, better it is. We have to be careful, we have to be respectful, but we are proudly moving forward with laïcité in Quebec.
Where does respectful, by the way, come into that conversation? I'm not sure. That's Jean-François Robert talking about this idea that possibly, not yet, but possibly, they're looking to extend Bill 21. James Mennie at the Montreal Gazette. Jim, they just don't give up, do they?
Well, it's funny to hear you talk about the word respectful. I mean, logic is still waiting outside, tapping its foot to try and get in the room. And I say this because, as we've reported, the CAQ are in trouble, as they've been for more than a year now. And when in doubt, let's go after somebody. If it's not Anglos, it's immigrants. If it's not immigrants, it's Muslim women. That's the big favorite. That was the sort of, how can I put it, the legacy target of the CAQ government. But Bill 21 certainly the idea that the very presence of the idea that you could actually see a woman in the public service wearing a scarf on her head could, make you convert to Islam. I have no idea, but that seems to be the rationale behind it. But you have to wait there for a second, Aaron, because even though Monsieur Robert is turning around and saying, well, we're going to see, we've got to, protect secularism, and we have to do what we must to, maintain the identity of Quebec. They're also pointing out that, the people who are already wearing hijabs in CJAD or in daycares, they get to keep them, okay? This will only apply to new hires because, goodness me, if we were to turn around and, make this retroactive and, in fact, scour the public sector of any trace of any kind of religious symbol, by crikey, we would be screwed over because we would have nobody to work in our daycares. We'd have nobody work in our CJAD. And this is another sad example. Never mind the fact it's illegal and insulting and xenophobic and gives credence to the core support of the CAQ, which are basically ignorant, bigoted people living out in the sticks, who haven't even been who have never seen Montreal, much less a Muslim. But this is the base they have to hang on to. So this is what they do. They try to, to play the same tired old tune, but in a different key. But when you have the ministry turning around saying, it's okay, yeah, we've got it. We must protect, Quebec's identity. We must make sure that the pollution of any religious symbol be effaced from Quebec's, public entity, and yet will keep us there because if we don't, the whole system is going to collapse. There seems to be a contradiction there, Aaron, and one that they are hoping that their frightened, ignorant base will not recognize, but one which the rest of the province has seen. And, honest to God, I know we talk about this, Aaron, we say, well, why isn't it, the rest of Quebec rises up and just says, get out. You know what? I think they're going to do that. Every time I talk about the CAQ, it's always, quite apart from any of the topics we're discussing, it always depresses me because I have to point out, Aaron, we're still stuck with these clowns for more than a year, okay? And they have been completely repudiated by the electorate. They are not going to form the next government. I would be surprised if the party even exists by the time the next election rolls around. But when they turn around with a straight face and keep playing these smarmy little games, which are not meant for people in Montreal or even Quebec City or even any major town. It's for the blue neck crackers who voted these people in 8 years ago. Will probably vote for them again, although they won't put them in power this time. But this is it. The jig is up because apart from going after minorities, apart from pointing the finger at Anglos or immigrants and blaming them for the problems created by the CAQ government, every single policy move this government has tried to make, be it immigration, be it the construction of old age homes, be it the putting government services online, has been an unmitigated disaster. These people, apart from everything else that you want to use to describe them, are incompetent. They don't know what they're doing. So when push comes to shove and the heat gets a little too intense, they turn around and find a way to extend some they're out to get you law, an illegal law like Bill 21. And listen, the other shoe's going to drop between now and voting day. If you think 96 is not going to get toughened up, especially in the wake of the possibility the federal government will be an interested party in a Supreme Court challenge to it, think again. This is the only trick these incompetents have ever had, and it's the only trick they know how to do. They will do it over and over and over again. And my only hope is, and I've said this before, I've said this years before. My only hope is by the time they're done, by the time they're gone, the damage they have done to Quebec will not be irreparable.
Jim, as I hear you describe this, I've thought this for a while. I watch Jagmeet Singh, right, get up and do what he does, and then when asked about Quebec, go ahead and defend because the last thing you want to do is offend. And then I realize, imagine a guy like that ends up in Quebec, for argument's sake, right, and he leads a political party. And I know that Bill 21 does not apply to politicians, but just this idea that here's a man who, his religion forces him or makes him wear a turban. And if he were living in Quebec, in any other job, right? If he wanted to be a teacher or a professor, he couldn't do it.
Yeah.
And I think to myself, how ironic. And then someone like that has to defend, your policies with respect to Quebec. I don't know. It's just things that just don't add up.
No,
it makes no sense.
By training, Mr. Singh was a lawyer. He's a criminal lawyer.
Yeah.
So he could be a defense lawyer in Quebec and keep his turban on. If he wants to be a crown prosecutor, he could not.
Yeah.
He would have to make a choice, which was once again how utterly stupid it is. But you know what? This is where we live. Yeah. And it's funny that you hear let's give credit where credit is due. Whether it's Jagmeet Singh or whether it's Pierre Poilievre or indeed whether it's Mark Carney, okay? Nobody is touching the issues, the fundamental issues, the right violation issues of Bills 21 or 96 with a barge pole. They're turning. We really don't, and indeed, it's just the Liberals going. We really don't like this preemptive use of the notwithstanding clause. But the notwithstanding clause is being used to protect a very egregious and obvious violation of fundamental human rights, which we either have or we don't. I mean, if you want to turn around and say we don't have it, that's fine too. But please don't turn around and say, well, it's about the notwithstanding clause. No, it isn't. The people who are wondering whether their kids are going to still be in Quebec when they have to make their decision on where they want to spend their lives, may move someplace else. It's not because of the notwithstanding clause. It's because of jerkwad laws put together by a bunch of political incompetents, okay, who rode into power on a basic public malaise. They were fed up with the Liberals, fed up with the PQ, successfully created with a lot of media help, a mythology saying we have been designated by the people of Quebec to protect the Quebec identity, its language, to make sure those immigrants don't take over, because that's what they're saying. I mean, maybe not out loud, but that's what they're saying. And then they turn around and discover that all that governing stuff is real hard. So let's fall back on our other stupid laws and make sure that we're on the map as the people who will protect you from all the threats that we have told you are facing you, even though, quite frankly, there isn't a scintilla of evidence to suggest that you are, in fact, being threatened at all.
Jim, I want to get to two things really, really quick. Number one, I started the show by mentioning this today. I got stopped for a traffic infraction on my way to work today, right?
Were you speeding?
No. I turned left from a lane that you're supposed to not turn left from, but because of the way the road is configured, you sort of have to turn left or you get stuck behind a bunch of people going straight when you want to go right. It's a long story, but if you saw the intersection, you'd understand. Yeah. And a couple of people were pulled over because that's what people do. They kind of realize, you know what, this is dumb and this is just easy and it doesn't bother anybody. But when I spoke to the police officer originally, right, when he came to the window, I spoke in English because that's my first language. Yeah. And he said one word which made me realize I was going to be, in trouble, which was after I started speaking, he said, "Pardon?" And I realized at that point, that's where this is going to go. He's going to continue to speak French. And I eventually switched to French to try to discuss what had happened. But I'm wondering, you've been around a long time. Is it not the idea here that the police, if you address them in English, respond to you in English, or does it matter where you are in the city?
Well, I think if you have common sense, if you have common sense, you'll respond in English. I would find it hard to believe that Thadi Daguerre would make sure that his force, that he's so proud of, in a city, one of the most diverse cities in Canada, would have agents, officers, dealing with the public who cannot understand or speak a word of English. I find that very hard to believe. But if that's the case, I would recommend that Monsieur Thadi Daguerre, the chief of police, turn around, who also, as I understand it, speaks very fluent English. I've heard him on this very show. Maybe do an inventory of how many monoglot francophones he has in his service. And perhaps, I don't know, he's always big. Whenever there's a disaster, we're going to have training courses to look after that. Maybe have some English language, just basic English language training courses to find out what's going on. You could have not spoken French for any number of reasons, okay? But the fact is, the question I would ask is, if that same officer was being called upon to respond in an emergency and the information he was getting concerning that emergency came in English, would he say, pardon?
Yeah. I will say, to be fair, we had as I said, I did the best I could in French. He understood why I was questioning why he, had pulled me over to begin with. Mm-hmm. When he came back and handed me my ticket and said, it should have been for this amount, mais c'était, whatever, it turned out to be for less than that, and I didn't get points. So I'm appreciative of that. Mm-hmm. But when I said to him, and I thought, don't do this, but I did it anyway, I said, by the way, do you speak English? At the end of this whole, here's your ticket. And he looked at me and he said, not so good. And that was the extent of our conversation.
Bye.
So I just curious. I wondered if it's something that had to happen or not. Clearly, it doesn't have to. Maybe I'll ask Fadi to go next time we speak.
Well, perhaps the next time, when you first open your mouth and talk to someone in English, he tell you, I don't speak English very well, sir. I would recommend you speak to me in French. I don't think that is being excessive. I don't think that's being an angry phone. I think that's just a matter of common courtesy. The same reason I always, if I meet a total stranger in Quebec, I speak to them, the first words out of my mouth are in French, not because of Bill 101 or the Quebec nation or matters of identity, because 85% of the people who live in this province are francophones, and it's common sense and simple courtesy to do so.
And I agree with you. I would do the same thing depending on where I was. But I mean, the natural thing was for me to start in English. When I became obvious he wasn't going to or didn't want to try to understand English, I switched over as best I could, and everything went okay. I was just curious. What if you've ever had that experience? Jim, thank you. I appreciate it.
Got him out.